Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us tonight on another Constitutional Considerations here on Tactical Review. I am joined once again by Elias of the Liberty Review podcast. Welcome, Elias, and thanks for joining.
Hey, glad to be here. How are you doing?
It's been one of those weeks, but I'm here, so that's, it's fantastic. And I see we've got Brownies for My Fat in the chat. How you doing, Brownies? We've got a few other people who are joining on. We'll let them say hello as they get here. And I was looking at the channel statistics, and it looks like we are just a few subscribers away from launching the 500 subscriber giveaway. So
that only 7 more.
It's crazy to think. I'm not sure if you guys are sadistic or what, but I appreciate you guys. Appreciate the subs. Keep sharing the channel. Keep sharing the videos. And I'll keep buying your love and affection with cheap trinkets. So, Reeman Scimitar in the chat. Welcome, welcome. And you guys can see in the title tonight we're going to talk about the Ninth Circuit Court's ruling out there on the West Coast, including Hawaii, and what that might mean for those folks, or what that should mean, though might mean could be pertinent, what it might mean for the rest of the country, and or possibly I'll just show my ignorance and we'll let Elias be smart, which is what we do a lot of the times. And we are going to look at a couple of situations involving the mostly peaceful protests happening around the country still, and look at some situations where we've had motorists either intentionally or unintentionally find themselves in the midst of the protesters, and take a look at a couple of situations, and we'll just kind of talk about our thoughts on that. So tactical review on the way to 1 million. That would be amazing. I would like to point out that even Military Arms Channel hasn't hit 1 million yet, though. And he's got sponsors and stuff. Oh, right.
Hey, someone's got to do it.
Someone's got to do it.
Might as well be you.
I'm doing my best. Right, we've got Indit in the chat. Missed you there. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. And so, if you have all been under a rock, California's pretty anti-gun. Is that a good way to sum it up? I feel like it is.
I think it's putting it lightly. But yes, they're definitely anti-gun.
All right, and that's the stream. Good night. No,
we're done.
So, do you have the timeline on this whole thing pulled up real handy? It just seems like there's a lot to try to condense here.
You talking about like the magazine ban altogether?
With the magazine capacity limit, I feel like it was part of Proposition 36, Proposition 63, Blue 32, something to that effect.
It was a couple years ago.
Wikipedia.
That's always trustworthy.
Oh, absolutely.
2016 California Proposition 63.
Hey, look at that. I had the numbers right.
Yeah. So, from 2016.
Right. And it was after one of the active shooter events that the governor determined that you can't have an active shooter if they don't have more than 10 rounds in a magazine.
Correct.
And,
That's an active shooter.
Correct. And after that, there has not been any more active shootings in California. It's been amazing. That was sarcasm, in case you didn't pick that up. Regardless, back in, I believe it was November, Judge is it Xavier Benitez?
Something like that. I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, and you know, he's been hailed as the patron saint of firearms in California, but somebody's going to pop in the chat and, you know, just kind of give us all of our facts.
Well, they're not going to be able to pronounce it in the chat, so we're
that's true. Regardless,
you'll just get angry email at the end of this.
Regardless,
that's right. What he said.
Yeah, Benitez. Thank you. But it's not spelled like that. Regardless, he issued an injunction against Proposition 63, declaring, rightfully so, that it was unconstitutional and that it was I want to say grievance, and that's not the right word, but it's a hardship against the citizens' right to defend themselves. Specifically citing places in the desert and in the mountains in California where law enforcement might be not minutes even, but hours away. And so, in order then to try to get the case up to the Ninth Circuit Court, because the state courts shot it down and they upheld Proposition 63. And you guys might remember that when that injunction was first launched, it led to Freedom Week or Freedom Day. There were a couple of points where Californians were able to buy standard capacity magazines for very, very short amounts of time before the state courts shut them down again. Well, in order to then push the case on up out of the state and to the Ninth Circuit Court, which has traditionally been very left-leaning, I might add. So it was kind of a surprise that we wanted to push it there. We being the collective we, not Elias and I personally. My understanding is that Judge Benitez had to issue a stay against his own injunction so that Prop 63 was back in effect so that it could be declared unconstitutional and pushed up to the Ninth Circuit. Is everybody following along? Because there's a quiz at the end of this.
To be fair, it was a request by the Attorney General. I know you were trying to find some more facts on it earlier, right. And I found some. It was a request from the Attorney General, and Judge Benitez's rationale was this should have a thorough judicial review. Right. And so let's just get it up to the circuit court where it can be handled, and you're not going to sit there and fight over it, because then it would have gone to go to the district courts and it would have gone through the other ones. And I think he was just looking for it. Let's just get it over with. Right.
And it was something of a Hail Mary from my understanding, watching some YouTubers from out in California who have a little bit better grasp of the laws that are so tremendously infringing on their rights. But the thought process was, by making the Ninth Circuit rule on it, it was also going to prevent similar measures in the other states in the Ninth Circuit. So where you've got Oregon and Washington who are trying to become the new Californias, and Hawaii that is terribly anti-gun, this then sets the precedent for those states to be able to maybe have some breathing room.
Yeah.
Hey, Warsaw Patriots in the chat. And he says California is rising up against its corrupt state government. We can only hope. It'd be really nice to see them kind of get some common sense, in so much as it even exists, back into things. Looking at the news stories from California, sitting here in the Midwest, I don't understand how anybody can't look around living in California and say, man, this is screwed up. Anyway, last week, the Ninth Circuit Court upheld Judge Benitez's ruling that, in fact, Proposition 63 is unconstitutional, thereby overturning it? Question mark. Because, and I say question mark, because I think I read somewhere, as well as a matter of fact, I know that a lot of vendors still aren't shipping to California because they're waiting on some legal steps to be taken. More on that in a minute. But I thought I read somewhere where now Judge Benitez has to reverse his stay, which puts the injunction back in effect so that it can be officially ruled on. I don't know. All of the legal loopholes are just pretty stupid. You know, dotting all your T's and crossing all your I's and whatnot. So, and I don't know, Elias, I mentioned all of that earlier. Did you happen to find anything pertinent to any of that?
I do know that there was a hold put on by the, or no, rather, there's not a hold put on. The state requested a delay, and it wasn't a thing of, we're not going to do it. Apparently their delay was trying to stave off a buying spree. That's according to the Associated Press. They're afraid there's going to be a buying spree of these magazines, which I wouldn't blame them for.
Absolutely not, yeah. As a matter of fact, you know, if you guys aren't already planning to buy magazines, I'd say it might be a good opportunity where, with everything being out of stock anyway, maybe give our brothers and sisters over in California an opportunity to actually get something bought.
But now understand this isn't over yet. So what happened is the appellate courts have actually about 11 judges on them. Only 3 judges ruled on that, which is normal. You usually have just a 3-judge. However, they can request that all 11 judges look at it. Now, if that happens, you're more likely, especially with the Ninth Circuit. I'm not sure. I know Trump's made quite a few conservative appointments to the Ninth Circuit. I don't know how many, so I'm not sure right now what the balance is. And they can also appeal to the Supreme Court. I have a feeling that the Supreme Court is going to try to toss it. Well, let me put it this way. The Supreme Court's not going to rule on it. And the reason for that is right now there's no competing thing. So a lot of people were really upset when the Supreme Court would not look at the good example was the whole bakery thing. Right. Bakery and gay weddings. People were really upset because the Supreme Court kept declining it. When there is a consensus among the lower courts, the Supreme Court tends to ignore it. So the district court ruling against the Proposition 63, and then the appellate court also ruling, against it, staying in line with the district court. I think even if they took it to the Supreme Court is going to deny because there's a consensus. Now, if the appellate court overrules it, chances are they're still not going to do it unless Colorado finally gets their day in court and the 10th Circuit, and there are differing opinions. But until there's a difference, usually the Supreme Court doesn't look at those kind of things because they see it as a consensus.
Right.
And they don't really want to step in unless they have to.
Right.
So now what is curious is if California doesn't go for it, speaking to that Colorado, is that Colorado's already had, well, first of all, Colorado is a great situation because Colorado back in 2013 banned high capacity, and it's been pretty much ignored by everybody. They still sell them within the state, and almost all the sheriffs within the states have said that they're not, or within that state have said they're not going to enforce that law whatsoever. But it's still going, and they've actually sued the state government. The Sheriff's Association sued the state government on that. So you might get another one coming up to the 10th eventually. But as of right now, just dealing with California, right now California is may try to get a stay of this because they might want to try to see if they can get the whole appellate court to look at it. I'm hoping not, but I wouldn't put it past California. They're out of money. They're not doing well. So, of course, the next step is to keep trying to take away people's rights by pumping money into something they're going to lose in the end.
Of course, the flip side is they're out of money. They need money. You allow people to have their rights and collect taxes on those purchases. I don't know. I'm crazy. So
Yeah. What's up, Harry? As for even military vets and service members are getting fed up, that's not new.
Right.
I mean, it's been a few years since I've been out, and while I was in, we were already fed up. So
yeah, usually the only military guys that I see who are anti-civilian gun ownership tend to have not actually seen any like combat type duty, and they didn't even have to go outside the wire to see what the conditions were like in other countries and say I want none of that for my home. And then I see Brastard pointing out, yeah, the whole FFL system, the background checks, NFA, all of that are unconstitutional. I absolutely agree. Shall not be infringed. Full stop. I agree.
Yeah, and we've been around that one. I mean, I don't think there's many that disagree with that stance that none of that should be there.
Right.
And the argument is along the lines of local government, government can say where you can and can't protest, and I disagree with that also. So, it's nothing in the Bill of Rights gave the government the authority to decide how you're allowed to exercise those rights.
Right. And that's the thing, is that once again, I believe it was the far left who pushed to apply the Bill of Rights to the states. And so...
which is ridiculous because, the funny thing is now they're realizing what the 10th Amendment was for after Trump. And they started wanting to, push back on that. They finally kind of learned and understood what libertarians especially have been harping on for years, which was states' rights, which was, in all reality, California wants to outlaw firearms. Fine, that's their problem. I just won't live there.
Right.
But they decided to open that can of worms and apply the Bill of Rights through a very bad interpretation of the 14th Amendment. They decided to apply those rights to the states. Well, if you're going to do that, then you're going to have to play the game.
Right.
You went the game, so you're going to have to play it now.
And Warsaw, I agree with that too. If we had term limits, and I've heard this counter argument to that. We're going to get off in the weeds a little bit. But that's okay. It's my stream, and I want to go in these weeds. I've heard arguments that to the effect of, I'm going to try to articulate these the best I can because I thought it was asinine then and didn't fully commit it to memory. But the general concept that was presented to me was, but if we have term limits, then we're going to have people come in who don't know how to do political things. And I'm like,
Great.
Yeah, that was exactly my thought. It's like, it was never meant to be a career. They should,
Politics is the problem.
Exactly.
In Washington. It'd be great to have people who don't actually know how to play politics and just do the job instead.
On the other hand, I think there's a reason that's why a certain individual won an election 4 years ago, and there's been at least as much bad as good out of that, I think, but still say it was a lesser of two evils. I don't know. I'm just personally really tired of choosing between a douchebag and a crap sandwich.
Yeah, he was the wild card. You didn't really know what you were going to get with him. There was the chance that maybe he would act differently. And, for the most part, he's still been a politician. But I don't think we're anywhere. I think we're really worse off. I don't think we're worse or better off without him. But
unfortunately,
we're definitely not worse off.
Unfortunately, business and politics play a lot alike. Is kind of the opinion
So he picked it up pretty quick.
I've garnered across the last 4 years. So... Anyway, news article...
the politicians make themselves in there.
Do what? The politicians what?
I was just saying, the politicians got themselves in there, and they're gonna hold on as long as they can now.
Absolutely.
I think they'll end up being. Well, let me rephrase that. They're gonna hold on as long as they can, and we're gonna let them.
And
I've said it before. 9% retention rate. We're the ones that are letting them do it. So we really only have ourselves to blame.
yeah, I'd agree with that wholeheartedly. I did read a news article that was mentioning, I'm not entirely certain how this works because, well, I haven't looked at California state constitution either, but it mentioned that localities can still opt to have stricter firearms laws or magazine capacity limits, even if the state of California lets the Ninth Circuit's decision ride without requesting a wider decision.
So yeah, I think I don't know how that's going to stick. And the reason I say that is, for the most part, the courts have allowed municipalities to kind of do their own thing. For instance, again, this is where we get the idea of free speech zones. And if you go back and look at 10th Amendment, that was the whole idea behind it, was that municipalities could. And I will say that for California, there are some counties where if you live in it, it's really easy to get a permit, for instance, and that there are some counties where, a guy could have a gun to your head while you're trying to file the permit, and they'll still tell you, no, you're not in any danger.
Right.
So it's a really hard one. On the other hand, you've got cases like Chicago where the city has said you're not allowed to do this, this, and this, and the courts overruled them and said, no, you can't tell somebody they're not allowed to own a gun in their house. So, courts love precedent. As dumb as it is, courts love precedent. And so I think that'll end up, was it the Heller case or was Heller Washington? I can't remember. Whichever one was Chicago, though.
I feel like Heller was Washington, but I won't.
I think Heller was Washington, which was Chicago. But I have a feeling that the Chicago case will end up setting a precedent. I think California will try to get away with it. And they might actually get away with it because the people who are living in those counties probably are perfectly fine with that.
Right.
And the counties wouldn't like it probably aren't going to have those restrictions. So there's a chance they might get away with that one, because you have to have somebody actually take it to court. Courts don't just
right
willy-nilly rule things.
Right. And unfortunately, sometimes there's going to be people that don't understand the necessity until it's too late. I think that one thing that's going to work really in favor of the people pushing for this to go through is, in fact, all of the crap that's happened in 2020. Now more than ever, people are realizing that they are their own first responder.
Right.
Now more than ever, they're realizing that sometimes maybe 10 rounds isn't enough. Sometimes maybe 6 rounds in a revolver isn't enough.
Right.
Not to mention the very first administrative action with a semi-auto pistol is a tap rack clear, and what better way to eliminate a potential point of failure if you're doing that already than to just mag change. But regardless, Zafael, welcome, and that's a good point. Criminals have always ruled Chicago, and out of those criminals in Chicago have stemmed all sorts of national unconstitutional laws.
Mm-hmm.
Famously the Chicago typewriter, which had a very large push towards the National Firearms Act. So is what it is. Don't have any great answers, because there's some things about this that are still very fluid. Celebrations, I think, were shorter lived than what was hoped, because I think of that a lot of Californians, I know that a lot of Californians immediately started placing orders after the Ninth Circuit ruled, which leads us to another discussion from a major technological slip-up from one of my favorite retailers. If you guys haven't seen in the news today, Palmetto State Armory made a major oopsie. Kind of kick them while they're down, insult to injury. to our fellow gun owners over in California. They sent out an email explaining why their orders were still being held and hadn't shipped yet. And instead of using a mailing service or even just attaching all of the recipients via a blind carbon copy or courtesy copy, I don't know which one is, it doesn't matter. They just CC'd everybody. So they basically did an email doxing of all 290 some odd customers who had placed a magazine order to go to California.
That's an interesting slip up there.
Yeah,
Are they not using a mailing service for that?
I can't answer that question. And Chad doesn't watch my streams, so.
But even either way, I mean, whether not using a mailing service or, not doing a blind carbon copies, it's an interesting,
okay,
bold move.
Now I want to make sure, because you're a fellow IT guy, and I don't mean that as an insult. I know that it's a fake career, but you understand CC to be carbon copy as well, right?
Yeah, that's that comes from the
right.
old days when they had carbon copies between them.
Yeah. Okay. I was reading one of the news stories I read had labeled that as a courtesy copy.
I think that's coming from the younger millennials, Gen Z, where they don't remember those days. Because I can remember those days. My dad used to have a service station, and you had credit cards, and you had the carbon between them. So I think for us who are older, we remember those days.
Okay.
Whereas the younger ones just don't. So somehow it became courtesy because you're
including somebody else as
it. It's a courtesy to someone else. You're letting them know.
Yeah.
When really it's used to say, "Hey, I'm telling on you to your boss."
Right. So okay, I'm not going crazy then. I thought that I knew that I thought that I knew what I thought that I knew.
Call it carbon copy. Yeah, I've heard courtesy copy. I still go to carbon copy.
Okay. Criminals have smuggled stuff from Mexico and many weapons and firearms.
Never happens.
No,
they don't. They go to Indiana and buy it through gun show loopholes.
Yes. Yeah. No.
Except for the shows all require them to get, but facts don't matter.
Yeah. No. And it's the ATF is sending weapons and magazines to Mexico.
ATF. Yeah, I get that right. The ATF is sending the weapons to cartels so they can fight each other while getting everybody here high. And the criminals are getting it from Indiana.
So,
just the narrative.
Yeah, and Zephiel, you're to a large degree, you're right. I don't necessarily consider an email address to be super sensitive information, because it's not like they would have listed everybody's addresses into a bulk email that's being carbon copied. So, and let's face it, if the government wants the information about an online purchase that you made, your email address being included in a bulk email is probably the least of your concerns. I just found it amusing as I was dealing with several different brush fires at work. Actually, this has been a very stressful week at work, but to see that somebody else was having a day about as bad as mine. What happens when the guns are gone but the criminals move to IEDs? Agbon, that's a fantastic point that nobody wants to respond to. Violence did not come about with firearms. Firearms simply gave violent people an expedited way to do it, but also gave peaceful people who are willing to do what it takes to protect their loved ones a force equalizer. It's, yeah.
You're not thinking ahead. The problem is that they're going into the same assumption that so many have throughout history of the government will take care of us. Why would they ever do anything against us? And they're not students of history, unless it's gender studies. They're not students of history to actually see that this is just history repeating itself.
Yeah.
because they're convinced that the government is there, because the government has brainwashed them through school and other methods that the government is here for you. You know, you look at any of the Democrat or Republican, it doesn't really matter in all reality. You look at any of their ads, anything like that, and it's all, we're going to take care of you. But truthfully, what have they actually done in the last several years? It was actually funny. I'll pick on the Democrats on this one, but I sent a text to a friend of mine who's more on the liberal side, and told him, I was like, who am I? I was like, instead of allowing you to have the candidate you wanted, I picked the most established candidate I had. And then during a time of unrest due to police brutality and misconduct, I picked a VP candidate that supports police brutality and misconduct. Like, who am I? Because they don't care. But somehow in everybody's head, they still think their party cares about them.
Right. And so many, and we see this on both sides of the aisle. Vote blue no matter who, and et cetera, et cetera. And unfortunately, it's two sides of the same coin. We've talked about that before, and that's not a rabbit that I necessarily plan to chase tonight. Yeah, government will take care of you.
I mean, he's right. People are relying too much on the government because they've been brainwashed into thinking the government's going to take care of me.
Right.
Whether it's Social Security or it's welfare or it's health care or anything else or your protection. To get us back somewhat on topic of firearms, you saw what I sent you today from, I think it was the New York City mayor, who told people you don't need a firearm permit because the police will protect you. Despite the fact that the courts have ruled the police don't have a duty to protect people, that's what he's telling them.
Right.
And again, it's that convincing of, we'll take care of you. But in all reality, how good are they? I mean, we can pull up the New York murder rates right now, but, the fact of the matter is the government's not going to take care of you. The government's going to take care of the government.
Correct. And
if you're in the way, we'll run right over you.
And we've discussed before, police are meant to be a peacekeeping force, but they can only do that if they get there during the commission of a crime, and otherwise they're an evidence gathering body.
Yep.
And that despite the fact that I do support my local law enforcement, the good men and women who have chosen to stand in the gap, to be protectors, to be servants, as opposed to those who just look at it as a way to be a bully with a badge. We're not going to beat that horse anymore.
The fact of the matter is cops can't be everywhere.
No.
The cops can't be everywhere, and that's just the way it is. But the idea that the government is going to take care of you is foolish. But this is what you're taught from a young age, through schools, through colleges, through the media. It's not surprising people fall for it.
It's a nice dream.
It's a nice dream, and it makes people feel good, and so they run with it.
So, back to the mag capacity thing, though. If it carries the way that it should carry, this can also mean good things, because once again, courts love precedent. This can mean very good things for our brothers and sisters in other infringed parts of the nation. Massachusetts, I believe Connecticut,
Jersey,
Virginia. So we will have other states and other districts now that I think will be forced to either confirm or dissent. And then, as Elias said, if we have dissenting opinions in different federal districts, it will probably make its way to the Supreme Court. And hopefully can do so while we have...
hopefully. It depends on what side of the bed Roberts wakes up on.
Right.
The conservative and liberal side, you never know which one he's actually going to wake up on.
So, anyway, moving on to something, I don't see a lot of folks in the chat who are from the California area, at least not at this point in the channel's life. However, something that can apply to all of us, and I hope it doesn't apply to you guys directly. I hope that you are being able to stay out of the contested areas of the country right now. But if you do find yourself in the midst of a location where active protesting or especially active rioting are occurring, whether it's with the current situations happening in summer of 2020 or at any time, we want to look at a couple of situations where motorists have tried to go through areas that are under protest. I don't believe in either of these situations that these particular motorists were attempting to impact the protesters, though that has happened. But I want to look at a couple of these situations. I have video from the older situation that occurred actually down in Indianapolis here a couple weeks back. And then we're going to mention the more recent situation that happened in Portland. You guys have probably seen these on the news, and kind of talk about some takeaways from this. So we're going to first cut to this video from Eduardo Corricchio's YouTube channel showing some situations that happened down in Indianapolis here just a couple weeks back.
Get that baby! Get that baby!
Well, believe it or not, she's so good. He's a miserable. He ain't gonna hit nobody.
Come on, buddy! Don't be stupid!
Guys, shut that water!
All right, so there's some takeaways from that, I think, obviously, or we wouldn't be talking about it. First, I kind of want to talk about protesting and blocking the street. I'm pretty sure that according to various laws on the books, that it is illegal to disrupt traffic without a permit while protesting. And a fantastic counter argument is that change doesn't usually happen unless you're causing a disruption. Elias pointed that out to me while we were chatting earlier.
Well, that's also why earlier I purposely brought up First Amendment and the government telling you where you can and can't protest. Because it does tie.
Right. That said, it appears from what I could see in this video, and we don't know what happened before that, and we see the truck turn around and leave. There's no doubt in my mind that that driver could see from several blocks away dozens or hundreds of people gathered around or on the street. There comes a point when discretion is the better part of valor. Unless the individual was attempting to hit somebody, I just don't understand why a different route was chosen.
Yeah, and I kind of like what I said to you. You know, I think there is a difference from you're on the expressway and there's nowhere else to go.
Right.
And people are blocking it. Versus you're inconvenienced by having to go, a mile down the road.
Right.
For me, I think there's enough blame to go around on both sides of this.
Oh, absolutely. See, yeah, let's kind of look at both sides. Since we weren't there, once again, there have been motorists who have intentionally attempted to plow through groups of protesters. And from what I could see in this video, this looked to be truthfully protesters, not rioters. We've mentioned before, there's an important distinction. And I don't know, Elias, can you recall any major rioting recently, since that is down sort of towards your neck of the woods, or was it mostly actually protests?
Mostly. I mean, there were some issues downtown, some issues uptown also, but it really wasn't to the level that you're seeing in some of the other cities.
Right. So, the argument can be made that the protesters were in fact afraid for their lives based on actions of other motorists in other cities.
Yep.
That said, the dude wasn't jumping the sidewalks. I feel like you could show something about character depth by being like, all right, this dude's trying to get through, let's clear the road real quick, right? I didn't see any actions that would have justified rolling up on the truck with pistols at low ready. But again, the argument can be made that, well, maybe because of other situations, these protesters were in fear for their lives.
If you see it from one thing I will say, if you see it from the start, when you see it from the start, he's in the wrong side of the road already.
Right.
Which means that most likely he had turned. They had probably tried stopping him, and he tried to go the other way, and that may have been, we didn't see what happened up to that point of what was he doing before they decided to pull firearms.
Right.
So I it's one of those things of I'm not really sure what happened before. We only see after the confrontation started, but I do know that was one of the things that really stood out to me was he's already on the wrong side of the road. So was he already coming at them? Either had he started on one side and then crossed over, or was he just coming at him going, I'm going to get through one way or the other,
right.
And he's not even obeying the law at that point either. And these guys may have just been, in all reality, if you will, a forward team of making sure nobody gets to the rest of the protesters down the way.
Yeah. Again, based on this short video, which was the clip that I saw, and just based on that, guys in the truck trying to get through the road, two guys come up with firearms at the low ready. Based on that, in the state of Indiana, he would have had a justification for a self-defense shoot. So I think that was bad on, like you said, there's blame to go around. Never should have been, you see a few hundred people or a few dozen people even blocking the road, and you know that there's civil unrest. Drive 2 or 3 more extra blocks.
And worse, to your point, what I told Blair earlier is like I really don't like BLM, definitely don't like Antifa, but the fact of the matter is they have the same rights we do. They have the same rights to protest. They have the same rights to firearms. It's not one of those things of we can't play this game of, well, the people who agree with me are allowed to have the rights, but not the ones who disagree with me. So I think you can sit there and easily say, I don't agree with their stance. I don't agree with what they're doing. I don't agree with how they're doing it or anything to that effect. But at the same time, recognize they have the right to do it.
And
just as we had the right, or not we, just you and I, but we as the community had the right to go protest in Virginia,
right,
against unconstitutional firearm laws up there.
And to your point, Warsaw, that the protesters have murdered thousands. In the places where that's accurate, okay. But once again, that's why I clarified, these protesters in Indianapolis, they, however, have not murdered thousands. And so it's important, and that's why you've heard me so many times make a distinction between protesters and rioters.
Right. But exactly, and from what I can tell in those pictures and from the local police reports, there was no violence going on. They were blocking the roads, and that's it. But again, as was just stated, you don't get to block traffic if you don't have a permit to protest. Okay, so why do we have to have a permit? if we're going to sit here and argue that we shouldn't have NFA and permits to carry firearms, which is the Second Amendment right, why do we need a permit to exercise our First Amendment rights? You can't have one without the other.
Right, and Warsaw, yeah, that's the...
Right, and I agree. The rioters are a whole different mess, and we're not talking about the rioters. If these guys had been rioting and throwing Molotov cocktails, it would just be a whole different conversation. But from what we can tell, they weren't. And from all the news reports in the area, they weren't doing that. They were just blocking traffic, which, you know, I'll give you, is not quote-unquote legal, but neither was revolting against the British either. So we can't really use that as our litmus test.
Right. And once again, the flip side is I don't think it's a very smart idea to go play in traffic.
No,
but
no. I mean, the whole thing was a complete mess that never should have come. You know, I told you, what it reminded me of.
Yeah.
In 1975, the Lebanese Civil War started because of an accidental shot. One side was blocking the road. There was a bus coming. They decided, I don't want to go around. I'm going to go the way I want to go. It wasn't even a protest. They had blocked off the road for an event at a church. The bus decides, I don't want to go around. They get into an argument. A shot accidentally gets fired off. The bus driver is killed. A couple hours later, people come back to retaliate. 15 years later, and 150,000 people dead. These things can start by accidents, and that was one of the things I remember we talked about was, did either of these people actually understand the full gravity of their situation?
Right.
If one of those guys who had a gun got a little bit antsy and pulled the trigger, you don't know what's going to happen. And it's easy to sit here and say, well, this is the U.S. and it's different and that wouldn't, but is it really?
Well,
if it knows like Lebanese history, in the 1960s, Beirut was called the Paris of the Middle East. And it didn't take very long for it to descend into chaos. It doesn't take much. World War I started with an assassination.
Yeah. And once again, if the guy in the truck would have felt threatened and cited, Indiana stand your ground laws, and to a degree, when you're in your vehicle, it's kind of an embassy of your own home, and so to a degree, castle doctrine even. Like I said, I think that there might have been grounds for him to claim self-defense had he opened fire. It really could have gone sideways and been an absolute crap show.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is it could have gotten bad really, really quickly. And, that's one of those things I wonder was either of them actually think that through.
So,
yeah, he's right. I mean, there was an accident, Battle of Lexington.
Yeah.
These are things that start because people get antsy and they lose control of the situation. And things like this will cause loss of control. I have no problem with the guy who I disagree with exercising his Second Amendment rights and his First Amendment right. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with the truck trying to say, look, I can go over here. But if you're going to face off, are you really ready for the consequences?
Right. And compare that to a situation that did go badly for the motorist. I don't have video of the more recent situation in Portland. I can give you guys a link.
Right, and Warsaw, they weren't being followed though. The guy had pulled onto the road, so I'm just saying, if you're talking about the guy in the truck, he wasn't being followed.
Yeah. Basically, what I'm saying is, as law-abiding citizens who are not involved on one side or the other, vigilance should be our MO. If you are a concealed carrier and you are taking responsibility for your own security and the security of your family, whether it's driving through a city that's being protested, or whether it's choosing your seat when you go sit down at a restaurant. I don't know about you guys. I do my best to have my back in a corner and see as many entrances and exits as I can when I go sit down someplace. Just because I want to do my best to be vigilant so that I can be a better protector. Right. And I'm not saying that I'm fantastic at that. in this particular situation, that means keeping your eyes 2 blocks up the road.
Yeah.
Because whether it's protesters or whether it's a car crash that I would like to avoid just so that I'm not late going where I'm going, I kind of want to know what's going on. And that's what I kind of want the takeaway. That's kind of what my point was, is that the situation could have been avoided entirely, and we would not have been having this discussion of this side's right, this side would have been right, but they were blocking the road. This side would have been right, but he was driving on the wrong side. We wouldn't have had this discussion. We wouldn't have even known to maybe have this discussion if the guy would have been like, man, there's a bunch of people up there in 2 blocks. I'm not even dealing with this crap today.
Right, yeah. And that's what I was saying, is there's enough blame to pass around. Because on the one side, that guy could have just gone with, you know what, I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to go around. It ain't worth it. And on the other side, they could have just said, hey, let the cars go through. You know, it's on both sides.
And
is what really comes.
And worse.
And the only thing out of all of it was, know what you're getting into, and you better be ready to accept the consequences. Like you said, the guy who that you're trying to get over to, who decided to keep on going.
Yeah.
That didn't work out.
Yep, and Warsaw, exactly what you're saying about being surrounded. The link from the Washington Post that I dropped just a few comments up is an individual. I don't know, once again, I don't know the entire story surrounding the situation. I don't know why he was in an area of Portland that was so heavily protested. But he ended up getting back in his vehicle and attempting to drive away. Reports vary. Was he trying to get away? Was he trying to run down certain protesters? Regardless of that, he was forced off the road, where he crashed into a tree. He was then pulled from his truck and beaten severely, kicked in the back of the head, bleeding all over the road. Now, was any of that violence committed against him okay? I don't see any reason that it was reasonable. Once again, Portland is a little less protest and a lot more riot, in my opinion. Regardless, it comes back to kind of forethought. Well, let's just quote the old saying, discretion is the better part of valor. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. Yes, there have been people who were surrounded and immediately their vehicle, people started swinging tire irons at windows. And at that point, that's a violent threat. Somebody smashes out your window after surrounding your vehicle with a tire iron. Yeah, your life's in danger. That changes the dynamic of the situation. And every bit of life is a fluid situation with millions of variables every moment. So, yeah, once again, the discussion we're having right now is not condoning every bit of activity that's fallen under the guise of protest in the last 90 days. We were very specifically looking at what we could see in that one particular video. And now comparing it to a very different outcome for the driver in another video. And the discussion being, if you don't need to be there, you know.
Exactly. And, you know, in that case, that would have been one of those things of, you see the crowd, just go a different way. Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to do the thing of, I'm going to go wherever I want to. I mean, sure, you can, but the consequences may be a lot more than you really want to pay.
Absolutely.
And I don't know what happened with the truck. I don't know if he just was honestly minding his own business and didn't think that that they were gonna interfere, or if he was trying to do a thing of, I can go wherever I want. I'm not saying it's right what they did to him. It's absolutely wrong. I'm just saying that if that was his mentality, it's probably not the wisest mentality to have.
Yeah.
Especially in the situation we're seeing right now.
It brings me back. If you guys don't mind, I'm going to paraphrase from the Bible. You know, Paul said, more or less, sure, all things are lawful, but not all things are good for you.
Right.
I mean, that's a huge paraphrase. It's in the New Testament. I can get you that far. But
In the back.
yeah, near the back. So, yeah, just because you can walk around open carrying, sure, it's your Second Amendment right. Is that your best choice at all times? I think that we've discussed this before. I personally feel like there's a bit of a situation where it paints a target on you. If somebody comes into a situation intending to do bad things, you, as the law-abiding citizen, are still at the initiative deficit. You don't know that that person is getting ready to do a bad thing, but they know that you have the tools to defend yourself. You are now a target. That's not to say that you can't open carry. That's not to say you should never open carry. But sometimes it's better to be the gray man.
Yeah, I am not a proponent of open carry. I know when I walk into any room, any building, I'm looking. Chances are somebody who's there to do something is also looking. And the ones with open carry are going to be good targets. So I don't really feel like giving myself away that quickly.
Right. And Zephiel, yes, absolutely. I understand that even trying to be aware, sometimes the tables turn. Oh, I'm not saying never defend yourself. Oh, God, no.
You shouldn't even get yourself in that situation.
And poor conservatives in the chat. Somehow I missed that. How you doing, bud? So...
we'll have the best barbecue. Everybody will tell us.
It'll be the best. It'll be huge.
It'll be the best barbecue. My friends all tell me I do the best barbecue.
Hey, I think the poor conservative quit watching another channel that did Trump impressions. So just we're gonna lose a sub.
And the good thing is we're not very good at it.
Well, no, I'm not good at all. I haven't actually watched enough Trump addresses to even start to get good at it. So, yeah, huge. They're huge. So,
I watched the first State of the Unions thinking he was actually going to do something interesting, after all the claims, and when it just was regular grandstanding, I stopped watching.
Yeah. We discussed that. He became good at politics very quickly.
Yeah.
So, probably safer open carrying than wearing a MAGA hat. There's
sadly
a lot of truth to that. And that's another one of those things.
But again, you should be able to wear them without fear of molestation. We're not gonna dig too much into presidential candidates and whatnot. That's no. I mean, we can talk about his excellent two-way record.
Oh man,
I can't say with a straight face.
Yeah, the most two-way president ever.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the NRA. Incidentally, they got their words mixed up. He's actually the worst president for two-way. I think he's actually signed more anti-two-way legislation in EOs than Obama, and that says something.
I believe you're right. I love the fact that NRA is laying claims to the Ninth Circuit decision as one of their victories.
I'm surprised they didn't side with California.
And you know that if Gun Owners of America and Firearm Policy Coalition are successful at getting that executive order over the bump stocks overturned, you know that the NRA is going to lay claims to that one. You want to talk about 4D chess? NRA is the one who's sitting there trying to play 4D chess.
We were against it the whole time.
So, and still has firearms owners trying to defend him, or they'll better to vote Trump than a Biden-Harris ticket. And I'm going to grant you, a Biden-Harris ticket might be the most overtly anti-gun ticket maybe in U.S. presidential history.
I don't know. I don't know. It's a hard one because Obama was pretty anti-gun, and still, he had his own other priorities.
Oh, hey, that's a great question from Agbond. Anyone asked to buy ammo from me, Ag Bond has sold ammo at pre-panic prices to a couple of friends already. Is diverting your inventory to helping people a good move? And
On a moral level, yes.
I say only you can answer that question.
You can, yeah, all we can say, maybe on a moral level, yes, but from a strategic level, that's your call.
Yeah.
You know you have, and you know who these friends are.
You know, would I sell my last box of self-defense ammo? Absolutely not. Would I sell no, but I mean, when I go to the range with my group that I go to the range with, oftentimes it's like, oh, here's a magazine, give me back later, or you know, they're shooting my gun, they're shooting my ammo, but then they hand me their gun with their ammo, like a 12-inch PTR 91 with a 2-chamber muzzle brake. That will rattle your teeth, boys. Anyway.
Hang on, hey, Agbon, can I buy some?
Oh yeah. If you're sitting,
in this case, I think you're okay.
Yeah, if you're sitting on 35,000, and you know, I knew a guy who has picked up a 300 Blackout, and very specifically was looking for subs, and I had one box of Hornady Sub X that I picked up because it was the only defensive loads I could find when I first built my 300 Blackout pistol. But I very specifically wanted supersonic defensive loads. So yeah, I sold that at about what it, you know, I couldn't find what I bought it for, but I just looked up what the most recent price from my normal ammo supplier was and sold it. Now this is an individual who may very well be in a position to employ that particular firearm in mine and my family's defense. So I had ammo that I wasn't using, had no intentions to use, and he had a need for it. It just made sense. I'm not going to tell you, I don't think that hoarding just to hoard is ever a good idea. It falls under greed, it falls under idolatry, that falls under a whole lot of things that, you know, I've actually passed up the last box of 5.56 on the shelf at the store simply because I knew that I had ammunition at home and I was going to buy it just because it was in stock, but there was another individual there who was buying their first rifle and had no ammunition to go with it. That's a decision that each person needs to make for him or herself. Make sure that you have your bases covered for training ammunition, for defensive ammunition, and then beyond that, you have to make the determination on, you know, is this, do I feel that this is the right thing in this situation? Family, absolutely. I gave my sister her first mag of defensive 9mm loads because she just had some ball ammunition, and I was like, no, that's not how you do this. You're not in a combat zone and bound by the Geneva and Hague Conventions, even if you're not officially. Anyway. Zephyr, I'll take 30K at your cost, not greedy. Oh, I love it. Trump is playing 4-dimensional chutes and ladders. That's fantastic. And you know, back to the ammunition thing, I actually, my sister-in-law, I found an offer for a beginner's pistol class for her. And actually this is pursuant to maybe a potential video series here on the channel, with, you know, millions of first-time gun owners. I think that'd be a handy service to have. And my sister-in-law is not anti-gun, but she's not super familiar, super comfortable. But it's going to be a 200-round handgun course, and finding 200 rounds right now isn't the easiest thing. But over the last year and a half running the channel, I've been buying ammunition when I could, and I don't have 35,000 rounds, but I've got something of a stockpile, which will put me in a position to help my sister-in-law out, which will allow her to defend herself and my nieces and my brother-in-law, although ex-Marine probably doesn't need his wife to do. Anyway, everybody needs a fire team. while generating channel content, that's a no-brainer. It's family, and you guys are family too, and it helps me generate content. So there's that. Clear shelves so the person buying the first rifle gets a good taste of how the world works. That's, to each their own. I also did find out about a gun shop fairly local to me. It's a smaller shop, but I guess that they've got full shelves. So I'm not telling you guys where that is, but I might have to be making a slight field trip. Elias, I might tell you where that is.
I'm about to say, it sounds like I'm coming to visit soon.
So, and the good retailers, one of the meme channels that I follow on Instagram, he actually, I don't know if he's set up as a distributor and just doesn't, but he gets access to those wholesale prices. And he was saying that the wholesale hasn't gone up the way that the retail prices would have you believe since the beginning of the panic buying. So once again, Rural King and Stock and Field, and from what I can see, Academy Sports, when you can, getting the stuff online at Academy is a no-go, but in store, they're not marking up nearly the way that some other places are. So, I picked up that 300 round box of 5.56 Aguila that I posted on Instagram a couple weeks ago for 33 cents a round, I think. So the deals are still out there. It's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time. So, yes, small arms research eats a lot of ammo. Yeah. And speaking of research and testing and things, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a fair warning. The video that I filmed the plan would be for it to premiere next week. May not, because I feel a moral necessity to contact a manufacturer about the product before I put a video live that it's really got a more negative spin than I'm super comfortable with. So yeah, I don't want to share that until I have an opportunity to reach out to this manufacturer, and I feel like they need a design or a material change kind of thing. So that may necessitate me recording a bit of a postscript kind of thing. So I want to give them an opportunity to respond.
Interesting that, and be able to include the response.
Absolutely. And it's a big company, and unfortunately I'm a small fish, so hopefully their customer support team is really fantastic. So if it seems like I'm radio silent, I've got content that I'm actually, it's filmed and in the editing suite, and I just don't know that I'm comfortable releasing it until a resolution of some sort is at least started. So I don't want you guys to think that I'm intentionally dropping off the radar. But between that and just with the ammo shortages being what they are, just am not able to get to the range the way I would like to, so I don't have like 5 videos in the wings. But since we're live right now, and you guys are my core group of fantastic fans, I wanted to let you guys know what that situation was in case I can't get anything out except live streams here for a couple weeks. So Second Amendment Foundation, absolutely, Warsaw. As a matter of fact, those are the 3, I mentioned GOA, Firearms Policy Coalition, and Second Amendment Foundation. Those are the 3 national groups that I personally support. And as a matter of fact, if you buy yourself some awesome Defender coffee, you will have an opportunity to choose one of those 3 organizations to support with the profits from your purchase. So recommend Defender coffee. Really fantastic stuff. I'm a fan of the vanilla roast, but you can make your own choice if you're a coffee drinker. Who's the manufacturer? No, I don't want to throw them under the bus. And I believe that I've seen other content creators have to reach out to them. So if they completely ghost me, if they're just garbage to work with about it, then yeah, I'll throw them under the bus. And the fact that I'm a small, almost 500 subscriber channel right now, be damned. The truth is the truth, no matter who shouts it. So doing a video for Tactical Jock for Tactical Timmy's, cool. And do what I feel right's nobody. Well, thank you. Although I think some people will judge me. I'm judged quite frequently by short people every day, but that's another story.
You've got nothing else to do.
Well, guys, it is after 10 o'clock, and I think Elias and I have agreed that staying up until midnight on these is not good for our health and well-being. So I do thank you for joining us this evening. Keep in mind, if you would like to help support the channel financially, one way you can do so is by going over to the merchandise store and picking yourself up some t-shirts or a coffee cup or stickers. Highly recommend the Tactical Review Eagle that you see there on the right, designed by Poor Conservative. Been a very popular design, and it's a really comfortable t-shirt. If you feel the desire to support the channel more directly, you can do that over on Patreon or on Subscribestar. Those links are clickable down in the description, and that of course does give direct support to the channel. I do my best to give my Patreon and Subscribestar supporters at least a couple days early viewing on the videos. Usually give you guys a chance to weigh in on live stream subjects and so on and so forth. If you happen to not be following the channel on social media, you can do that at Tactical Review 2019 on Facebook and Instagram until I end up in social media jail, and then we'll change that up as we have to. You can also follow Elias. I guess I have to point this way. It's all backwards to me. Elias, how can they find you?
I don't remember. You usually know. I'm on Facebook. I know that. Is it Liberty Review 1776?
It is Liberty Review 1776.
1776.com.
Oh, goodness gracious.
When I go into Facebook, I just have to click the thing, so I don't have to think about where it is.
That's a good point. That's why I've got the little thing that I put up on screen, because otherwise, yeah. Anyway, I appreciate you guys so much for joining us tonight. Poor Conservative is wearing his channel shirt. That's fantastic. I appreciate the support, appreciate the design. You guys are awesome. Remember, make sure to share the video, share the channel, a few more subscribers, and we will do another giveaway. And if you don't win in that one, we'll be doing another giveaway once we hit that magic 1,000 subscriber mark. That way I can click the monetize button and YouTube can tell me that they don't like firearm content. That's what's going to happen, but
the next step in your broadcasting career.
Absolutely. I got that planned out. Guys, I'd appreciate a thumbs up on the video. Subscribe, share, all those awesome things. And guys, until next time, shoot straight, stay safe. See you on the next one.